This podcast is supported by Wesleyan Financial Services, providers of specialist financial advice to members of the legal profession. Wesleyan's team of dedicated experts have been helping law firms and their employees achieve financial well-being over many years, providing personal and commercial financial advice, in-firm seminars and online guidance. Strategic partners with the Law Society, Wesleyan is proud of its partnership with Women in the Law UK. For more information about Wesleyan, visit wesleyan.co.uk, or to arrange a financial education event in your firm or a no-obligation financial health check, connect with Sarah Deacon, Wesleyan Area Manager, on LinkedIn.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Talking Law from Women in the Law UK. I'm Sally Penni, MBE, a barrister at Kenworthy's Chambers in Manchester, the Joint Vice Chair of the Association of Women Barristers and the founder of Women in the Law UK. Do find us on LinkedIn. Just search for Women in the Law UK. Today you'll hear my conversation with Simon McCrum. Simon qualified as a solicitor in 1990, but for the last 20 years has become involved in consulting, especially in the management and development of lawyers, legal teams and law firms. He is the author of the forthcoming book, The Perfect Legal Business, and numerous reports into the legal profession. I asked Simon if he was inspired to go into the law by a family member.
Absolutely not. We've got no lawyers in the family. I'd never spoken to a lawyer. Had I ever? No, I'd never been arrested or anything. So I'd really never spoken to a lawyer. I did history. I was a late developer, to put it mildly. I screwed up everything that came my way, my O-levels, my A-levels, and then my degree. And they asked me to visit the careers officer who told me I'd make a good tax inspector. There had to be an alternative to that, I tell you. And my friend's brother, who'd done history like me, was a solicitor. I asked him how you made the leap from history to solicitor. And of course, there was this amazing conversion course. And thankfully, I got a place on it. I kind of woke up very late to wanting to succeed and be effective and not be bored, Sally. I look back after 30 odd years in the legal profession. I have not been bored one day. And that's the wealth that I think this profession gives you. So it was the whole thing was just an accident, you know. Once I got into it, I then had to get away from it as quick as I could, away from law into the business of law.
Yes. Now, I want to talk about that because often we don't talk about the business of law, what a managing partner expects, how to develop firms can deal with their profits. Can we talk a bit about that, please? Because I know you did a massive amount of work with Derby's. Prior to all of that, you were at Cobbett's, a well-known, certainly Manchester firm, and Pannoni's, which, depending on who you speak to, is the best firm in the country. And there are many lawyers trained at Pannoni's, and there's a thing people refer to as the Pannoni's way. I don't know if that's anything to do with Roger Pannoni, who, of course, is long retired. But your journey is an interesting one. Can you tell us about Derby's and then what you're doing now? Why the business of law for you?
Well, I didn't choose to go into the business of law, but I remember the moment it started. I was a trainee solicitor. I was working with a magnificent lawyer called Vincent O'Farrell all night on an injunction. Crikey, he was incredible. He could work all night and not eat. So I didn't eat. I had to pretend it was okay as well. It was like, can you imagine that nowadays? Working on that. But I remember saying to him while we got on the 5 o'clock train 5 a.m. train to London, I just said to him, where did we get this case? And he wasn't sure. And I said, I'm really interested because we could get more. And that was beginning to awaken. Then I started working with clients, and then the clients would start ringing me instead of ringing the lawyer who'd originally who'd involved me in the case. And I realized I had an interest and a skill at developing clients. I worked my way up into a team leader's role where, again, I'm not doing the work, but I'm helping lawyers. I'm facilitating them all doing the work in a way that blows clients away and which makes good money for the business. And eventually I had an ambition to run a whole law firm my way, because at that time, Sally, back in 2007, I was sure that my way was perfect. So I went into Darby's. You ask about Darby's.
Yes.
Darby's was a top 200 law firm based in Oxford. Wonderful, wonderful clients. It did things the way that a lot of law firms do, which was a lot of it was for the client's benefit rather than the business benefit. And what was missing, which frankly I still see now, and it's I make a living on it now. A lot of lawyers are just missing the business edge.
Yes.
And certainly I felt at that time, and I think as a firm we felt it, and an awful lot of law firms still feel it. Don't make it all about money. What I now know is you've got to make it all about money, because it's a business. And if you do make it all about money, it makes everything sustainable. You can look after your staff. You can invest in the community. You can give back. You can invest in clients, service, and technology and all of that. So making it all about money is something that I never did when I was managing partner. That was one of my big mistakes, because what we did in terms of the fantastic group of people we built up, I'm sure we hit 200 at one point. The fantastic group of people we built up, you could feel it. It was great going to work, to be surrounded by brilliance and happiness. And the service we delivered, our whole strategy was a great service, every lawyer, every time. And we did it. We just didn't charge for it. That was the problem, because it's a business that needed to do that. But boy, we did it, and we changed a lot of people's lives internally and externally. I'm very proud of all of that. What I'm less proud about is as a businessman, I didn't really have the obsession about profit and cash that I should have, and that I now have, and I engender in law firms. And one of the big hurdles I have to get over with law firms now when I engage with their people is there's this reticence that they think I'm here to make it all about money.
Yes.
But I am, but for great reasons. You want to keep your staff, you want to develop your staff, you want to invest in your staff, you want to invest in your clients, you want to give back to the community. You try doing any of that with washers, you can't do it. It needs money.
Interesting, because I was just going to say, what about justice and truth and all the reasons that, younger people, that we all came to the bar and certainly and to solicitors' firms, can they still achieve that diversity, well-being, which I'm going to come to?
Yeah.
Can you do all of that on sort of without being all about money?
What a brilliant question. There are law firms and there are law firms. Some of them are less business-like than others. It depends what the owners are what their why is. Their why. Why are they owning this business? Because some will do it to create value for themselves and future generations of their firm, and others will do it for far more community-based reasons. It is still possible to do the justice that you talk about, and I became obsessed with that. I still do it now. I'll still help people because I see myself as an equalizer, and I think lawyers can be the greatest equalizer going. We are the ones that can stop. We can help the little man. That's an amazing achievement. I think it's still possible.
Absolutely. Now, Simon, Darby's became the fastest growing law firm ever, and then it became acquired by Knights. And then you went on to set up your own firm, helping lawyers, if you like, or law
Yes.
firms. So I really want to ask you and talk to you about, because you've got a book out, which I'm still waiting for my copy, but I've been reading so much about it and everyone's talking about it. I want to ask you about the perfect legal model, which is what the book is called. What is that? Can you share some of that with us and how the book came about?
Of course I can. I'm evangelical about the role of solicitors in society, or more broadly than that, lawyers. So I include barristers, everybody. We can change people's lives. They don't come to us on minor things typically. They come to us because the biggest thing is facing them in their life, and that's either a crisis or an opportunity of some sort. Lawyers, I haven't yet met a lawyer, Sally, who wants to do things badly, who doesn't care. Instead, what you find is lawyers who care deeply, but just can't do the kind of job for clients that they want because of the pressures of their caseload, the pressures of their fee targets, and that kind of thing. And actually, the best will in the world therefore goes by the wayside. There's no point a lawyer having 500 cases or even 300 or sometimes even 100. Give the lawyer 10 and watch them change the client's lives. And that's good for business as well. So I wanted to show there's another way of doing business, and it isn't all about pile it all high and work everyone to death. Actually, there's a way of doing it. And there's about 10 bits of jigsaw that make up the perfect legal business. And what you find is a law firm might try and change one of those bits of jigsaw. It might try and get a new IT system or a new website or a new area of work or open up a new office somewhere. It only works when these things are all joined up together. I used to get hundreds of emails a day. I think I get 5 a day now. I don't have any plates spinning. It's amazing. And what that gives you is something we all forget about. It's called clarity of thought. And I can now talk to law firms and see things that they just cannot see, because the business of law necessitates that everyone paddles at 100 miles an hour.
Yes. But isn't that model, the fee earning model, isn't that dead when you look at, the legal director, gunner cook, some of the newer models and the alternative business structures? Do you think we still need those now? Or do we need to be clever about the old model and how we use it? What do you think about that?
Everyone tells you the old model's dead. I have seen no signs of that. I haven't even seen it in poor health. The old model is alive and kicking, and there's so many tiers of law firm now who do things at so many different prices that there's still huge access to justice for people, access to legal advice when it's needed. It is there. For those that can afford it, yes, of course, there's the blue chip stuff. The old hourly rate model hasn't gone away, but what certainly hasn't gone away is the need for good advice. And what never ceases to amaze me, and a lot of people out there who think they can invest in law firms and make a big killing that no law firm's been able to, one thing they don't realize is just how hard it is being a lawyer. I don't think they realize just how complicated even the most simple case can become. You can't do that on computer. You can't do that with algorithms. That requires wisdom that people like you, people like me have had decades building up, nuances, wisdom. That's what justice needs, not an algorithm.
Quite. What advice for younger people entering the profession? What do they need to understand about not just the business of law, but if you're entering the profession today, what do they need to understand about it? And indeed, what would make them stand out? If you've got any advice about that, for example.
Yeah, lovely questions. What they actually need, my book out at the moment is the first in a series. It's called The Perfect Legal Business. The one I'm writing now is The Perfect Lawyer.
Put my name down for that straight away.
Okay, and that is all about, because I think your lawyer now, your lawyer, whether they're young or old, they're facing pressure from two sides. They're facing pressure from the client on the left, but sadly they don't operate in a vacuum, so they're facing pressure from the business on the right. A professorial lawyer who can write a 15-page letter analyzing a particular situation, but it takes him 3 months and you can't really charge for it. That's a beautiful piece of work. But in the context, the client won't understand it, firstly. And secondly, the business will say, sorry, that is not how this business can work. So there are pressures, and the lawyer has to get it right, sadly, on both fronts.
Yes, interesting. And then what about those who are in the profession, have been for a while? And I'm talking about the high street firms, the middle-sized firms, and then, of course, the big, giant corporate law firms. What advice for them? Because I'll come to my COVID question later, but what advice now for those firms? The high street person who hasn't even got an Instagram account or hasn't got an online profile. Have you got any advice for those, the different categories of law firms?
Yeah, I've got advice for everyone, Sally. I've got the same advice for every category of law firm.
Wow.
It's the same thing. It is, don't forget the basics. You have firms, global firms, Sally, who are investing millions of pounds in artificial intelligence. The lawyers aren't ringing clients back. Sorry, is it me? How do you keep a client? The answer is communicate with them, be ahead. All you've got to do you want a 3-word business strategy for law firms? Push and tell. Push every case, tell every client. That's all it takes. That, for a start, makes you stand out. All too often, cases are sat on the end of a desk because a lawyer's got 300 files, instead of spending the hour on it that the case truly needs to take a witness statement. Instead, it'll get a 5-minute job, a rush job. Push the case properly, tell the client where the case is up to. That's the best advice. That would be my dying advice to law firms, whether you are Baker McKenzie or a high street firm.
In Rochdale or perhaps some of the smaller areas or Surrey. Well, can I ask you then, what do you think about COVID? How's that going to change the legal landscape? And do law firms need to change with it? We're all enjoying, I'm not sure about enjoying, working from home. Sometimes I am because of the commute. But how is it going to change for not just law firms, but, the sector in general? Do we need to adapt to this? I hate the term new norm, but I think, you see what I mean. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm pretty sure about one aspect and I'm unsure about another. The bit I'm sure about is that it has transformed the way lawyers can do business. Absolutely transformed it, and it's brilliant. The way that clients now and lawyers now can deal by Zoom is incredible. I think you can get 80% out of a Zoom meeting of what you might have got out of a face-to-face meeting. That's a lot. And to get that 80%, you don't have to travel for 2 hours to see the client. The client doesn't have to travel for 1 hour and try and park somewhere in Manchester city centre or London to see you. It's an absolute game changer. The bit I'm unsure about is whether there's going to be the appetite for legal services that there was pre-COVID. And that's to do with a recession and job security and fear. And I'm watching the news today. It seems to be getting worse by the day. And somewhere down the line, I was talking to a law firm today who said they've never been busier. Somewhere down the line, I fear the appetite for legal services is going to go into a lull. And that's where the survival of the most agile and the fittest, and those that return calls and those that push and tell every time, that's where they'll have to stand out. But when we come out of COVID, which I have every reason to believe humanity will adapt and come out of this, I wonder what's going to happen to law firm offices, because all too often now, the law firms are telling me that they just don't need them anymore.
Yes, quite. I've often thought that myself, actually, the spaces. People can work from home. Now, Simon, tell me, before I was asking you about, law firms wanting to do the best, help everyone, increase social mobility, diversity, race and gender, all these things that are brilliant want to do. What do you think about it in the profession? You've been in the sector now for a long time. I'm a Black woman. I set up an organisation which cares not just about gender. We've got lots of male members. Do you think we're getting better, or can we get better? Because, when somebody gets mistaken for a defendant for 4 occasions in their court,
oh goodness,
it makes me think, as happened to me so many times, we haven't actually progressed, and all the hard work is really being lost somewhere. So what do you think about diversity in the legal sector?
Well, if you look at the stats, I think they're shocking.
Yeah.
49% of the profession is women. Okay. What about BAME disabled? There's such a long way to go. In a way, I was sat in a law society committee, Sally, a year or two ago. We were discussing equal pay in law firms. I just said to the committee I was part of, I said, excuse me, what kind of firms do this? And they couldn't understand my question. I mean, seriously, who are these people? I just don't understand. Every law firm I have been privileged to work in and lead and own has been fantastic community where there was absolute equal opportunity. We changed everyone's lives. It was just amazing. There's such a business dividend, if you want, if you want there to be one. It's all there. How
Yes.
can, in the community that this country now is, how can you hope to grow your business if you don't understand whole parts of the community that it now is? I think the profession's got a long way to go, and I think a mix of shame and people realizing that it's just downright bad for business will get us further down. What I don't know, and I wish I'd done it before talking with you, is I can see the stats for women, BAME, and disabled, but I don't know what the trends are and whether they've plateaued. But they've got to carry on going.
Yes, but do you think, because my worry is we're going into a recession and we'll lose all the gains and it won't be as much a priority, which is why I'm so encouraged by you saying it's good for business. We know that because McKinsey, all the management schools tell us diversity is good for the profits. So why it is that we're still lagging, I don't know. But I haven't seen whether it's plateauing, but it is a worry, isn't it? That actually in the mix of things that firms have to make a choice on, that will be one of the things that will go.
Well, and I do think firms are going to have to make choices. I mentioned that I believe there's a lull in the demand for legal services coming. If they've got to make decisions, I can't understand how they could be women or BAME or disabled-based decisions. They've got to be the right decision. They've got to be merit-based decisions. They've got to be, they can't, and it would be a disaster to go backwards. It would be a disaster.
Rightly said. Simon, can I ask you about another passionate subject of maybe mine, actually, but I think it's of many people. I was talking before about having 3 children and juggling, picking up and then doing home schooling during the lockdown, and now doing remote hearings as well as court. What do you think about well-being in the profession? And you said, you get 5 emails now, maybe a day, rather than the millions you would have received, for example, as a managing partner. How can we do better? And what do you do for your well-being?
Can I tell you, when my law firm was acquired by Knights, I recall sitting in my kitchen and I looked up at the ceiling, and we had spots, these small spotlights in the ceiling. And then we had them everywhere, actually. I recall sitting in the sofa in our kitchen looking up, and I thought, oh, goodness me, there's a light out there. There's a bulb gone. Oh, and another, and another, and another. I'm not joking. I counted 32 bulbs were out. I had never looked up for years. That's around the house. I had never looked up for years. And this is what 200 emails or from clients or massive caseloads, it crushes you and it makes you look down. I think there is a huge well-being issue in the profession. And there's a business dividend in addressing it. Not only, like the old question of diversity and equality, not only is it just downright good in itself, if you want a business dividend, there is one. I have dealt with a lot of situations over the years of lawyers that were frankly just gone too far with stress and suffered terribly as a result of it. And I don't mind admitting, I've had a young man that I employed in my office crying, and I was ashamed. I was ashamed of that. If you're not ashamed of crushing your people, I think there's something wrong with you. What do? At the moment, I don't have the pressures that I used to have. I'm self-employed. Actually, the whole Zoom thing is better for me because I'm no longer Zooming around the country, if you excuse the pun. But it's so easy. I mean, I used to do it. You get home, your to-do list is longer than it was in the morning. And what do? You don't eat well, you don't sleep well, you have more alcohol than you should. It's a vicious circle. Yes. I think it's a real problem. And if lawyers are trying to cut cloth and increase profit by reducing lawyer numbers and then increasing caseloads, there's only one way that journey's going to go. And it's in business terms, it's daft.
Yeah.
It's the surefire way of losing money in the short term and staff in the medium term.
Well, can I make a suggestion to you and just ask you what you think about this then? If you have one lawyer highly stressed working on one file and that lawyer gets ill and then the whole case then collapses and what have you. Surely that's bad for business. Shouldn't we be thinking about a practice where there's more of a collaborative working? Different firms have got different models, so that we never get to it's not like, a barrister, I'm self-employed and it's just me on that case. Right? It's very different to law firms, which have got teams working well, good management. Do you think we should be trying to encourage more of that so we don't end up where, juniors are scapegoated? I've seen the SRA disciplining and striking off quite a lot of junior end and sometimes senior end. Do you think we should be thinking a bit more about the models whilst we're thinking about well-being?
Yeah, they are directly linked. You are going to love this book, The Perfect Legal Business. It talks about teams. An outsider might look at a firm of solicitors and go, wow, that's a massive team. What a great team. There's 50 lawyers in there. The danger is that that's 50 islands.
Yes.
Where well-being is preserved, but bizarrely profit as well as client service, and fact justice, because you're doing a bloody good job, where that's preserved is where you have a team structure, where you have a leader that doesn't have to know everything about every case, because he's got a lieutenant, a lady or gentleman who knows that case inside out and can keep that plate spinning. And then it's a new model of leadership, isn't it? You're leading from the top, and you're educating, you're developing young people to be the next you. That's exactly how it should work. All too often, the model is not that. Right now in this day and age, the model is often files piled so high on a desk that you can't see a lawyer, and that lawyer has his or her doors closed so they're not disturbed, so they don't talk to anyone. What does that do to the soul?
Yes, that's spot on. Just thinking, on that as well, is about shutting doors. Can I ask you something about women? I mean, I've got a lot to say about women, as you can imagine. But I wanted to just ask you about crediting other work that's not necessarily billable hours. So some firms that I know refer to it as fluff. And by that, I mean giving credit to what we would call traditionally business development. And sometimes, men and women are great at it, but sometimes women tend to be better at it. Maybe a return from maternity leave, confidence might be a bit low, but keen to get stuck in, other issues. And they're actually then end up being rather good with business development and maybe not straight away back on the big transactions or big cases. Do you think we should be giving more credit or assessing that in appraisals and in partnership considerations more so than we do now?
In the same way I described being appalled when I was in that Law Society committee meeting when they were talking about women being paid less than men, I'm appalled. Yeah. I've never heard it called fluff. I'm appalled to hear that mentality exists. Whether it's men or women, actually, a business is a marriage of different skills. So, for example, I became, and this is, I don't know if you know or should be good for your podcast, a lady called Joy Kingsley. Joy Kingsley was the managing partner who took me as a pretty poor fee earner because she recognized something else and put me into business development. And I became an equity partner because of business development, not because of cases. I never worked on cases anymore. In Pannoni's, we had men and women doing that job, and you were promoted if you did it well. Fluff, that isn't fluff. Where's those lawyers going to get their next job if it doesn't come through BD? Absolutely not. And what firms need is to stop rewarding billing only, because that drives some obnoxious behaviors.
Yes, it does. Certainly does. Well, Simon, we've mentioned your book already, but can I just ask you about why did you decide to write a book? And then perhaps we can move on to your favourite book and why.
I'm evangelical about helping lawyers see what it took me 10 years to see, whether they own the firm or whether they're going to own the firm or whether they work in a firm. I wanted them to see the pressures. It's such a complicated beast, a firm of solicitors, more complicated than I ever realized. And I was the managing partner. I mean, what does that tell you? So I've written this book. This book is gold dust. It could have been priced several times at what it's priced at. I priced it at £18 because I want everybody to read it. I'm amazed at how many I've sold. I'm more amazed at how many I haven't sold. because I would want, if I was a firm and if I was still in a firm, all my people would get this. Everybody would get their own copy. They could write on it and scroll on it. There's a danger that we're barking at people and telling them what to do. Why don't we help them understand how it all works and what their role in it is? That's what this book is all about. That's why I wanted to write it. If I'd never sold one, I was going to give them away. I'm just so passionate about getting this message across. Lawyers change people's lives. One of the things I wanted to do was help them to do more of that and make more money out of it. Because if they make more money out of it, they can do more of it.
Yeah, I mean, I really get that message. I think it's so important. So what's your favorite book, or a book that's really impacted your life, aside from your own book? Perhaps that you can share with me. Is there a book that's really impacted your life, and why?
We have an ongoing battle in this house. There's me, my wife, and two kids, two boys aged 15 and 16, and they love fiction and movies, and they can immerse themselves in series of books and box set. I just cannot get into fiction at all for some reason. I love non-fiction, so I love non-fiction books. I love non-fiction movies, documentaries, all of that. The book that I have read, beyond recollection now, how many times I've read it, is by Bill Bryson. Now, he writes fiction, but he wrote this book called A Brief History of Everything.
Yes, it's a great book.
And it starts off with him sat on a plane flying over the Pacific, looking down, thinking, where did all this come from? I just tell you, I've read that so many times, and I learn something new every time. So I don't have the imagination to lose myself in if you like. So I prefer facts. So there you go.
Wonderful. Now, tell me, I always ask this question because I'm interested. Do you watch much television or films? And if so, who's your favorite fictional character by way of a lawyer?
Okay, following on from the last question, you'll have gathered that I don't watch. My wife, I couldn't, when Suits was on, I couldn't get, it's ironic she's married to a lawyer, isn't it? She's obsessed with this stuff, and I'm not. I think it's all dreadful. I was watching a program the other night, a movie. I can't remember which movie it was, and the lawyer decided to change the client's plea for him. I mean, I just looked at my family and went, I can't watch this stuff. It's dreadful. In terms of lawyers, there's one lawyer sticks with me from childhood. I can't. It's a long time since I read the book, but Atticus Finch.
Yes,
I mean, he transcends law. He's just good. He's just heroic. But I haven't. I'm not a devotee of legal dramas, I'm afraid.
No, I know what you mean, but I probably like a bit more than you. But do you think the book, To Kill a Mockingbird, which is where Atticus Finch is the leading lawyer, do you think that's kind of shaped the way that you're thinking about law firms and perhaps some of the social interests and the moral arguments, the questions I've been asking you, which is why you want to try and help law firms so they can have the impact that they want to? I mean, subconsciously, you've probably not thought about it, but that is a powerful book in so many ways, and he's a powerful character. Do you think that stayed with you?
Yeah, I think it has. I love helping the underdog.
Yes.
I tell you, if my old bosses, when I was a lawyer, knew the cases I was dealing with for people that couldn't pay, they would have shot me. And one of the loveliest stories that I'm privileged to have been part of was I took a call. No lawyers would take the call from this caller, and I took it. And it was a very upset lady. She was upset because they just bought their first house, and having bought the house, they realized the neighbor was a nightmare. Okay, and they'd got a mortgage, and their life was a living hell. And it turned out that they knew the person they bought the house off knew all of this, but he'd kept it secret in order to unload the house. It ruined this young couple's life. So I said to this lady, look, I can't take your case on, but I'm here for you, and we will get this. And I helped her in my own time deal with this case. I put in more bloody hours than that. No wonder my billing was so low. She won. She won. Now, that was great. That was great news. But the greater news, she decided to become a lawyer.
Oh.
Because of that. And she let me know. She sent me a letter afterwards to say, I've just qualified, and it's because of you. Isn't that lovely?
That is really, really lovely. And so you're right, lawyers do change people's lives.
We can if we're allowed to. And just sometimes the pressures of business, or because of the way it's perceived law firms should run, it's bizarre. It stops you doing what you actually should be doing.
Yes. Let me just finish then, Simon, by asking you this. If you were entering the profession today, what tips and advice would you give? Not you, actually, maybe one of your boys.
Yeah.
What tips and advice would you give? Perhaps for people to stand out, perhaps for people to deal with failure. I remember Claire Smith, who used to work at Moneypenny and was a lawyer, telling me about the encouragement that she got from you. Actually, her having failed her exams and work from the bottom up. So I just wonder if you had any kind of advice and tips, perhaps, in dealing with, failure, rejection, or just coming into the profession now.
Yeah, I would say absolutely believe in yourself and don't compromise that. It's all too easy to adopt behaviors that you think will get you up a ladder.
Yes.
And take shortcuts and do things that, it's all about keep your personal integrity, because once it's gone, it's gone. Keep your personal integrity. Integrity is what you do when no one's looking. Stay true to yourself, whatever happens, because you will come under pressure in any legal environment, any legal sector, anywhere in the world. You will come under pressure to perform in business terms, and never let that compromise your own self-values. The second bit of advice is, I would say, you're going to be investing thousands of hours of your human capital in an organization. Make sure it's the right one. Yes. What are its values? Where does it stand on the kind of issues we've been talking about? And actually, how sustainable is it? And that's why I wrote this book. I wanted people who are nowhere near owning a law firm yet to understand and know which questions to ask, because I don't think they're told it's great, we've won an award, No, actually, can I ask you another question? What is our gross margin? What are our debtor days? Because that relates directly to how long I'm going to be able to work here and what my future here is. So understand the organization you're in. Don't take everything as read.
Fantastic. Gosh, that's such great advice. Simon McCrum, I think we need to sort of have longer with you. We need like a 2-hour session with you, but since we can't quite have that, can I ask, how can people buy the book? Is it available on Amazon, or can they contact you?
So the first question, is it on Amazon? No, it's nowhere. I didn't want to go with any publishers. I didn't want, some people say, oh, did you have someone read it through? No, I did not have anyone read it through. It's me. Okay, if you don't like it, don't buy it. There's only one place you can buy it. And is there an e-version of it? No, there isn't. I want everyone to hold it and touch it, love it, and write all over it, even if they write rubbish. And you can only get it on one place, and that's at mccrumandco.com/books. That's my website. Or email me.
Brilliant. Simon, it's been wonderful talking law with you. You've been a fantastic guest, and thank you so much for all your advice and tips.
You're a fantastic host. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to Talking Law with me, Sally Penni. You can find me on Twitter at SallyPenni1. Please do take a moment to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and do subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. If you've enjoyed the podcast, don't forget you can buy Talking Law 2, the podcast diaries, now available on Amazon. Thanks to Wesleyan Financial Services for supporting this episode, and thanks also to Sam Walker and our production team at What Goes On Media. Bye for now.